staying in a castle a couple of weeks back. An actual castle, not fabricated, not one that we had. We're shooting against a climbing wall in a city park.
Right.
That only works from a couple of angles, but a place that was actually called a castle. Alexander's Castle is the name of it. It's in Fort Worden State Park, on one of those parks that guards the entrance to Puget Sound, or that wasn't a park at the time, it was a military installation, which you might presume from the fort in the title there. Anyway,
I thought that just meant it was strong.
It may have been. Well, it appears to be. It's a 3-story building with crenellations at the top. It's got a parapet, and it's always had my eye on it because we've been to Fort Worden
quite a few times.
We filmed there. We've vacationed there, and it's this red brick tower across from a magnificent Madrona in a field that stands out compared to everything else, because most of the other buildings are, World War II era barracks or turn of the century officers' homes. This is this single keep castle tower there, and it's called Alexander's Castle because it was. Look, I actually brought notes for this episode. That's how. We're approaching double digits for episode numbers here, so we should. Really need to up our game.
Like Profesh or something.
Pretty much. Anyway, that's the oldest building in the park. It was built in 1883 by the Reverend John Barrow Alexander, and it actually predated the military presence. Of the fort there.
So they built the fort around his castle.
I don't know much about that. Anyway, he was the rector of St. Paul's Episcopal Church in nearby Port Townsend during the 1880s, and he built it because he was planning for it to be the home for himself and his bride-to-be. And when it was complete, he went back to Scotland to discover that she had married another.
Ooh!
And so he returned, and he lived there for a time before finally returning to the United Kingdom to take up guardianship of a young relative, and he died there in 1930.
All right.
Anyway, the building has been part of the fort and is now one of the places where you can stay, along with those officers' homes or the barracks, because the fort has become sort of a retreat center for conventions and the like.
Yeah.
And based on the inside of this place, this building should be haunted. Like, there are staircases at weird angles that are crooked. The banister isn't entirely straight. Everything is a little too narrow and a little too cramped. It's got the old high-backed chairs that look like they have faces in the woodwork. There are the portraits. During the day, they're fine. It's like, here's a neat knight. Here's a creepy old guy. Here are 3 birds that are dead on a table. I'm not exactly sure why. But at night, when it's that dark as it is out there on the rocky cliffside coast, and there's no sound, there's a complete absence of noise, it gets an eerie bit spooky. And you add to that I couldn't get access to the entire 3rd story of this. Like, you go up the stairs, again, a little kind of cramped, up these narrow, crooked stairs, and right next to the bedroom, which has no door, is a little, just sort of tiny shelf, barely 18 inches wide, that you could shimmy across. And then there is a built-in ladder going up through a trapdoor to whatever is on the 3rd floor. And this thing was locked. And I don't just mean locked as in there's a panel up top. There were panels all up and down the ladder, different interlocking panels with their own padlocks to cover the ladder itself.
To make sure you did not
go up there. And I was looking at it, from just a mechanical way. It's like, if I wanted to get up there, what could I do? I would have to either pick a series of locks,
right,
or I would have to pry the hinges of these locking mechanisms out,
right,
and then put them back in and repaint them. And I think they would notice if I brought a whole bunch of construction equipment in my Honda to the castle.
So lockpicking was the way to go.
Right. Which again, I'm not. I am not a rogue.
Oh, okay.
And I have no class skills there. It's a cross-class skill for me. So any points I would put into it. Anyway, it was so I never found out what was up there. Though legend says it was a cistern. They would actually collect rainwater, and so this guy had actual water pressure and could take showers in the 1880s. Clawfoot tub too, by the way.
Oh, okay.
You know, like a haunted place
So-
should be.
Obviously, they're keeping something up there. That's not about keeping you out.
No,
It's
clearly
about
they're-
keeping you from letting it free.
Absolutely, which was one of my first assumptions, but couldn't find any corroborating evidence. Yeah. Though I kept seeing that creepy groundskeeper laughing and chuckling as he moved into the shadows when I caught his eye out the top window.
Oh, Lem?
Yeah. Him.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, I was there for a while. I got to stay a few days at the edge of the ocean. Just a brief sabbatical during this sort of emotional hangover point of the year, because it's been a year. And,
Yes, it has.
And now that we're kind of in the safe zone, and Camille's recovered from her major surgery, we're all moved in, we've refinanced the house. It's like everything, all that crap that I'd been putting off was allowed to hit me.
Yeah.
And I have, in the last week I've had just a series of awful migraines. I even had a minor mental health episode where I actually recognized what was happening. I'm like, I need to take myself out of play for now. And so Camille said, yeah, go. And I was able to go up and take a few days of rest and quiet and reflection up there. And it's a place I've wanted to be because Fort Worden and that whole area is a deep part of Dead Gentleman and Zoe's history.
Yeah.
It's one of the first places we filmed in those tunnels.
Absolutely.
I went back to them, back in for the original Gamers in 2001 with our paraffin wax torches.
Yeah.
In those old
I
tunnels.
remember the safest set we've ever been on.
Safest. I think I did set Phil on fire. Slightly. That was the same shoot where Matt Shimkus got hypothermia for the second time. I
Oh,
believe.
did he?
Well,
The second one? Okay.
Remember that Rogar's fur tunic was
Yeah.
faux
Yeah.
and offered no heat
Yeah.
whatsoever. But he's handsome, so screw him. Anyway, the whole area is a series of forts that were built in the 1880s and 1890s to safeguard the entrance to Puget Sound. 2 on the Olympic Peninsula side, 2 on Whidbey Island, so that any enemy ships from Russia, China, Japan,
Wherever.
Canada,
Yeah.
right, would have to go through that narrow strait between Marrowstone and Whidbey Islands.
They could just have a bunch of batteries there.
Exactly, just when they were on what were called disappearing guns, which were these almost like a curved rail that the gun would sit on, and they could crank it up so that it would come up above the rise, take a bead and fire, and then the recoil of the gun was enough to push it down on the rails again. So they could fire and disappear, and so the incoming ships, a geyser of water would go up or they'd get hit,
Yeah.
they'd look around and they couldn't see where it was coming from. Then, of course, the airplane became a thing, and these forts were completely obsolete.
Right,
Totally exposed. But, and there's a place up near, in Fort Worden called Memories Vault, where, as part of reclaiming the forts for the parks, there's an installation of concrete art with poetry etched into steel plates.
Oh, yeah.
Set in that. And,
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
I hiked up to that a few times. It's a place I like to go back to because the text is has a deep, resonant meaning to me, and it recounts how these were guns that were never fired in anger, and yet you still have a military graveyard here of all the soldiers who died of disease and shipwrecks and accidents.
Yeah.
On this forgotten shore, on this forgotten front. So somber.
Yeah.
Adds to the haunting, certainly. Anyway, I was there, and one thing that was disappointing about the castle, aside from not being able to get to the haunted 3rd floor,
Right.
was that the fireplace was a gas stove with the the preset logs inside.
Yeah.
Instead of actually starting a fire, you used the thermostat to get it to start, and such. So the second night I was there, I forgot to turn the fire off.
Uh-oh.
And woke up in the middle of the night at around 1:30 in the morning, and I couldn't get back to sleep. And I thought, well, probably the rest of the park's guests aren't all trying to be on the Wi-Fi right now, so I might actually be able to get a connection. And I did. I went downstairs, and in the middle of the night, found out that my mentor had died. This was Dorothy Fontana, D.C. Fontana, one of the original Star Trek writers who passed away at the age of 80. And a remarkable woman who had not just written on Star Trek, that's what she's best known for, but on Bonanza and Gunsmoke and also on Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
She wrote the pilot to The Next Generation with Gene Roddenberry. And in her, what do I want to say, the winter of her life, she was teaching at the American Film Institute. When I was there, she was teaching the 1 hour dramatic writing course. Because who do you want better teaching you how to write television than an original Star Trek writer, right? And someone who'd worked not just in the traditional dramas, but in science fiction and speculative fiction as well. You know, she went by DC because at the time she made her name as a sci-fi writer, it would have hurt her
to be known as a woman.
To be known as Dorothy. She would have not been taken seriously. So she was D.C. Fontana. In the best episode, I think, of Deep Space Nine, Far From the Stars, the one where Sisko hallucinates that he is a science fiction writer from the 50s. There is a character based on D.C. Fontana played by Nana Visitor who also has the initials to disguise the fact that she's a woman.
I know exactly the episode you're referring to.
God, it's such a gut punch. Anyway, she was just a delightful woman and never judged what you were working on genre-wise. And I remember specifically there was... I was really struggling in my second year there because all of the things I'd written for thesis films had been rejected by the committee. There, I'd written 3 different scripts, one for myself, two with director friends, and one of the projects I was working on was a pilot that would become Hop Jockey. And in my workshop class, I had brought the pages in like you do. You know, you basically take turns. Who's going this week? We've got a 3-hour block of time. Polly, Wendy, Kurt, who's writing this week, and we go over 30, 40 pages, and then you have it broken down for you, and whether it's working or not, and you workshop it. And I brought it in, and everyone really liked the teaser, the setting in the real world in the college with the ghost building. But then, the moment the science fiction elements came in, it just, for everyone else, it sort of lost cohesion, and it didn't make sense, and they didn't like it as much. And so I remember standing in the parking lot there, just kind of kicking the ground. The whole campus was uphill. It's in the approach to Griffith Park.
Oh, yeah.
On where Franklin meets Western in L.A. I walked to school every day.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, from where we stayed in this cool 1920s apartment building. Anyway, I'm out there grousing in the shade of the quote-unquote trees of Southern California, and I see Dorothy, and she asked me what's going on. I said, it's my group didn't like my pilot, and I'm thinking of I should probably go do something else with it. And she says, send it my way. I know a bit about sci-fi. And she gave me the first positive feedback about Hop Jockey, and not just this is good, you have potential, but she cared about it. It meant something to her, and which of course meant something to me.
Yeah.
And we stayed in touch. She helped mentor another Nathan partner, friend of mine, who directed the first cycle project I was on. We have a screenplay that we've written together that a couple of times has almost broken through to finding funding out there that she was our mentor on. Yeah. And we stayed in touch years after. She was a fan of Journey Quest. She sent us a Christmas card every year. And actually she was who I called when we had the death on Journey Quest. It was the very first day we were doing a 4-day what was supposed to be a 4-day shoot down in Oregon, just on the Oregon side of the Columbia River. And not to get too deep into the specifics, but a beloved member of our crew who had many friends in the cast and crew went off into to the bathroom and had a heart attack so massive that he was dead before he hit the ground, is what the paramedics told us later. And nobody knew that he'd gone. So we didn't find him until almost a half hour after the fact. And you can imagine the trauma that came from that.
Yeah.
And the guilt and the wondering, did we do something that triggered this somehow?
Mm-hmm.
How did, and then the guilt of feeling like, what does this mean for the project? Even be thinking that at the time, it almost didn't continue. And so I remember being back in my father-in-law's house, 1,200 miles from home, because I was living in LA at the time.
Right.
And I called Dorothy and I said, I don't know what happened, and I don't know how to continue from here. And she kind of talked me off the ledge. It's like, this is a thing that happens, and she gave me some very practical advice. And she let me call her at home.
Yeah.
This is a film professional who was operating at the highest levels of the industry. And I was I was a graduate at the time. It's not like there was an academic reason for her to take my call, other than I care about you.
She was under no obligation.
Exactly. And I guess that's the kind of person she is, and I will very sorely miss her. And it's especially hard, for the Deep Space Nine family, who's now lost 3 members in a very short amount of time, with Aaron Eisenberg, and DC Fontana, and Rene Auberjonois. Just recently. I didn't know that Rene was as old as he was. He was 79.
Yeah.
Which means that the first time we saw him as Odo, he was 52. And he was a year shy of 60 by the time the series wrapped.
Yeah.
This is incredible. The vigor and depth he brought to that character. It's my favorite character in all of Star Trek.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, his, you sometimes see that as some actors get older, their movement range becomes a little more restricted. But, like, the movements with Odo were a big part of the character, I think.
He's
like
a kinetic character.
Yeah. And you wouldn't have been able to convince me he was darn near 60 at that point.
No, even in the rare episodes where he wasn't in the traditional Odo makeup.
Right.
The one where he was playing Curzon Dax. The one where he was the 200-year-old alternate reality version of himself who'd learned how to better control his features. He did not look old. He looked the sort of that ageless, over 45, but I can't tell how far.
Yeah.
Anyway. So it's been a somber month here in the garbage time of the year and the decade.
Yeah.
Which is this. I learned the term from football, actually.
Yeah?
Like I remember I was watching...
Garbage time?
Garbage time. It's like the point, usually in the fourth quarter, where the game has already been decided and you're just playing it out. Right?
Oh, okay.
And it's a time where... And I remember it being used... It was a time when it was in one of the Seahawks' many runs to the playoffs. And they had a 3-touchdown lead in the fourth quarter. So they're resting some of their starters. They're getting some new guys some experience. And the other team starts fighting back and scores a couple of touchdowns, which annoyed me because it's going to mean the stats are a little bit off. But the commentators referred to it as a couple of garbage time touchdowns. And I was like, oh, okay. It's like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And, in this industry, in entertainment, I learned this in LA, mid-November is about when things shut down. Sometimes even late October after the High Holy Months. It's just nothing of complexity is going to begin now. Right. You can't spool anything up. And then, especially here, during the darkness and the dampness, nothing is filming. I always feel sorry for my students who have to film in the fall semester. Because as we get to the production, the daylight is getting whittled farther and farther down. You get maybe 6 hours of rain-soaked, frigid outdoor filming per day.
If you're lucky.
Right? And then, with here's a thing that wasn't a thing a few years ago, is like, oh, right, the children are home for the final 2 weeks of the year. So I can't reliably take my 6 hours of work between dropping them off and picking them up anymore. So, it's the wrap things up time of the year. Also, there's the holidays, which... Those things as well. So, somber time of year. Yeah. And not just for the years is this, the things wrapping up, but the decade, too, which just kept slipping my attention. That, we're done with the teens.
Yep, into the 20s.
Into the 20s.
Yeah, and I'm welcoming something new at this point.
Absolutely. Yes. So what are you working on these days? Is there
Working on?
Yes.
Gosh darn nothing. My current job, long story short, keeps me very busy and has a long commute.
It's been.
I think we've talked about that.
Yeah, we have. It's
before.
been 3 months since we've done one of these. Just
Yeah.
you and I.
Yeah. I mean, it's going well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that I can keep up using this much of my time every day forever.
Mm-hmm.
But I can do it for now. I can maybe keep it up for a year, possibly 2.
Your commute is awful.
Yeah.
From what I understand.
Yeah, it's sometimes like there are times where I can go in later and like I can start working from home and then like stop to drive to work. Like the other day I drove to work at 10 and it only took me an hour. But if I have to be at work by 10, I have to leave at 8. Yeah, if I leave at 8, I'm there by 10. If I leave at 9, I'm there by 10:30. Mm-hmm. And then if I leave at 10, I'm there by 11.
Yeah.
So
And you get the reflection of that in the evening.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless you get out of there by 2.
And I think we've probably mentioned this before, but for those of you who are not Northwesterners, how is it that Seattle can have consistently some of the worst traffic in the nation, considering it's not one of the largest cities in the nation?
Well, it's because everything bottlenecks between these corridors where there's land and not mountains.
Exactly.
Like
there's nowhere else to go. Like
Yeah.
all of Los Angeles is a grid. It's a giant.
It's so
grid.
spread out.
It's so spread out. So if yes, the 405 is awful going through L.A. at night,
Yeah.
but you can always get off and take side streets. Where Seattle is an isthmus.
yeah,
You've got Puget Sound to the west, Lake Washington to the east. 405 runs east of that. Then you've got 2 floating bridges that cross them both. So if,
and then you've got a wall of mountains that's not that far beyond that.
right?
Yeah,
There's nowhere to go.
yeah. It's this skinny strip of everyone has to go north and south through just this small little area. Yeah.
So that's keeping you busy, but paying the bills, I hope.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've got no complaints about that. And yeah, ideally I build up some good resume stuff, and then I can start doing this kind of stuff down here and spend a little more time actually working on things I want to work on. I know I mentioned briefly in a previous episode that I've been looking at building up a potential DM for hire side gig.
Yeah, how's that going?
I mean, with the commute right now, it's not going anywhere, but it's not off the radar. It's just on an indefinite pause until whenever it is I can have personal time to pick it back up.
I'm familiar with the indefinite pause on projects.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. How about you?
Well, the
What are you working on in your garbage time?
I'm working on. So the World Bible is done.
Nice.
Farther Old World Bible is done. I don't remember because I think I finished it on the day before Halloween, and we didn't do a November episode, so I haven't stated the specifics. But it's the longest project I've ever done.
Yeah.
By more than twice.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's I quoted this in the update that went out as part of the Kickstarter. But to put it in context, the just by word count, because that's a metric I can track.
Right. Yeah.
The average screenplay for 100-page screenplay, so about an hour and a half or so, is about 22,000 words.
Yeah.
Right there. And of course, a screenplay is mostly action text and not so much dialogue.
Right.
It's 20 to 22,000 words. The average novel, I think, is like 70 to 80
1,000.
thousand words. Pwned was 51. Hop Jockey was 90. Okay. The Farther Old World Bible was 234,000 words. Was the draft that I submitted.
All right.
So it is thorough.
So that's
very thorough.
It's about as long as most everything you've written
Pretty much
before that's been published.
I hadn't thought of it in those
produced,
terms, but yes, it's everything. So now I look at a screenplay as like, oh, that's easy. That's like it's like 1/12 of the last project I
Hang
worked
on, are you gonna be around this afternoon? Let me get that for you.
And so that's done, and by done I mean it's in editing.
Right
now. You do tend to accumulate the typos. There's a point in the project where I am effectively typo blind. I just cannot see them. anymore. And I don't catch them until they're in print or until someone, usually on the Patreon, points them out to me. Thank you, Liz and Rob and Rival, and anyone else who sends those in who I'm forgetting at the moment. So that's in editing, and I do owe replies to the editors on that. I need to get into. I'm still working on the Pwned adaptation. I can actually give it my full attention right now, which is frustrating that I can give something my full attention in the garbage time of the year.
Right.
When again, after this year, wrapping this year up, wrapping this decade up, the focus is scattered.
Yeah.
I'm still working on that. I'm also working on something else that just, when I can, it's not really ready to discuss. It's just too nebulous.
Okay.
At the moment.
But there's a thing, and it might become a thing.
It might become
more of a thing.
Exactly.
All right.
If not, I'll put it on pause.
Oh, yeah. I know how that goes.
What are you reading these days?
Reading. Again, while I do read here and there, I'm not really pouring through anything. Due to the commute, my reading is, again, mostly podcasts.
Yeah.
I'm doing a lot of the same stuff. I pretty much I was doing Radiolab for a long time, but I pretty much burned through that whole catalog.
Wow.
Like, including the whole backlog, at least as far as it goes through a streaming service or through a service you can download. They might need to go and look and see if they have archives older than like 3 or 4 years ago. But yeah, I've pretty much gone through all of that. Invisibilia is kind of interesting. I'm liking that one. Hidden Brain sometimes.
What is Invisibilia?
I think we briefly mentioned this one in a previous episode, but it's like so Invisibilia is a term sort of for about the according to them, the hidden forces that influence our lives.
Okay, sure.
Like I just listened to one about like this Taiwanese man's relationship to his mother that was very like distant, but like it wasn't very affectionate, but he knew she loved him, but he was always kind of vying for her affection. And that later in life, this like man half her age moved in with her in a totally platonic way, and just started like taking care of her, and like she would tell this person, things that she would never share with her actual family or with the husband she'd had while he was alive.
Oh, wow.
And just his reaction to that, and then his relationship with his daughter as a reflection of, this relationship he'd had with his mother initially.
Jeez.
And yeah, it was a very interesting story. But just sort of like how that influenced like his then relationship with his daughter.
I can see, yeah.
Stuff like that. Hidden Brains really just kind of...
That's Fareed Zakaria's? Is that his name?
No. Boy, I had it the other day. It's kind of... it's not exactly pop science, but it's sort of more like a bite-sized, like, interesting science stuff. Like little half-hour tidbits.
I remember I hear his occasional reports on NPR, and then they mention he is the host of Hidden Brain.
Yeah.
Shoot, no, it's going to bother me. I'll look it up after the show.
Maybe it'll come to me. And then, because the way I get my nerd on anymore is to squeeze it into my driving time, is I do listen to a lot of podcasts about Legend of the Five Rings.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, Jade Throne and The Meek Informant and stuff like that.
Cool.
So,
cool.
Art of Warcast.
Very nice.
And what are you pouring through these days?
Well, I read Pwned as part of the prep for revising it or for adapting it, and marked the heck out of it.
Now, are you working with Zoe on that?
No, I'm working with Kairos Productions.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It was optioned by Corey Moore's production.
That's
company.
right. I remember that. It was a while.
And
back.
It was the weirdest thing rereading yourself for work. Because, like, I remember the only 1-star review I got was someone saying there was just too much swearing. I couldn't get through it, and they were roundly mocked. Sure. Now then, rereading it, I'm like, geez, I do swear a lot. I don't know if it's maybe I could finally, and or that I didn't realize how often I was doing it, because I'm thinking maybe if I drop 1 or 2 curses per writing session.
Yeah.
But I have 100 writing sessions throughout the novel.
I don't know that that's inappropriate for that culture, though. Like, people who spend a lot of time online are constantly writing. Like, if you weren't toxic, you were still better than that community.
And the other part of it though was that was kind of difficult was looking at how much of the prose just made me cringe in ways where things like, oh, that turn of phrase is so clunky, or oh, I could have put that so much better, or oh God, this is problematic, Matt. Just given the clarity of some distance.
Yeah.
So I had to fight my own knee-jerk reaction to reach in with the editing pen and cross it out as if I'm going to do a new version of this.
Right.
And say, no, just...
That's not what we're doing.
That's not what we're doing here. Yes, you can do this better now, so
Yeah.
go do it better now. And then, of course, it has the cascading effect. And it was like, well, was the last one? Should I have been as pleased with it as I was?
Yeah.
Am I going to look at it in 3 years and go, oh my God, you hack. you talentless mound of sculpted turd. How dare you sully the pages. These trees died for your...
I mean, but I think that's natural.
Well, I hope.
I mean, as you get older and do it more, you're more experienced. Like, you are naturally going to get better at your craft. That doesn't mean you used to be bad at your craft. It means you've developed beyond when other people thought you were good. People already were like, Matt is a great writer, and you're better than that now. That's just natural.
I appreciate that. The story the anecdote I've heard, and I wish I remembered the names for it, of the actual writer and producer on this phenomenon was, so Best Picture 1974, The Sting.
Yeah.
Wins Best Original Screenplay. Mm-hmm. So the story goes. A few years after, the screenwriter is coming to have a meeting with the producer of The Sting. They're going to be working on a new project. Or they're going to go out for lunch, or doesn't matter.
Right.
So the setup is screenwriter comes into the producer's office. The producer's secretary says, "I'm sorry, he's in a meeting right now. Make yourself at home in the lobby." So the screenwriter sits down, and there just happens to be a printed out screenplay of The Sting, their Oscar-winning masterpiece, right? So eventually the producer comes in. They go out. They have a lunch. They come back. And it's not until days later that the producer discovered that what the writer had been doing while waiting was marking up and correcting the script of the Oscar-winning screenplay because of all the mistakes that he'd made.
That he thought he could do better this time.
Exactly, right? So I was like, okay, that's fine if no one's ever satisfied. So there was that odd experience of rereading myself for work. I'm also reading a fascinating book called Range by David Epstein about how generalists triumph in a hyper-specialized world. And it's specifically about how... What it's not saying is it's not saying we don't need experts. Obviously we do. But you have to be careful about experts not being blinded by their expertise and drowned by the weight of their own tools. Mm-hmm. They are sometimes so siloed that they are unable to make correct predictions a lot of the time. And what you want are people who are not sure of themselves, but who dabble in a whole bunch of different topics that actually make them more rounded and better able to apply different abstract models of thinking to problems.
Well, that self-doubt, that's the process of reviewing. Mm-hmm. Like, that's saying, is this correct? Is this the best way? Like, it's a sort of as much as it sucks to do it, it's a built-in quality control.
Right. And what's so interesting about it is it takes so many of the hallmarks of genius that we tend to associate with advanced intelligence and success. Like, we're looking at Tiger Woods, or looking at chess masters and whatnot, and how they did this experiment where a chess master was sitting in a park, and a panel van would drive by the park with a board position on the side of it, and it drove in front of her, and then she had to recreate that just from that flash, and she was able to do so. But when they did it again and the pieces were randomized, like they were in a place that they couldn't logically be at that part of the game, she vastly struggled with putting them together.
Interesting.
And it got down to a bit about how, it's not that they're memorizing photographically what they see, it's that they fell into a series of containers of likely positions or little batches of things.
Basically, this is how a battlefield could look.
Exactly.
But there's no way it could look like this, so my brain
can't.
can't.
So the brain can't focus on that. And there was another bit about how sometimes hyper-specialization leads to a level of confidence in your own ability that is not actually reflected in the outcome.
Yeah.
They did this experiment at the Air Force Academy, where students who were coming in to take calculus would rate their teachers at the end of the semester. Yeah. And the teachers who got the best ratings were also the ones who got the best grades, but were not the ones whose students retained what they needed as much in the later classes. And it was the ones who got the worst ratings, whose students were least confident in their own skills, and whose test scores at the time were not as great, who retained those skills better later on. What it got down to was a difference in basically the types of learning application. It's like where the hyper-siloed stuff is really effective is in what is known as a kind learning environment. Right. Whereas in the types of problems you are going to face are very, very similar a lot of the time. And this is where Chess Master comes in. This is where Tiger Woods and the golf course comes in. This is where neurosurgeons and such comes in. If you are only facing the same narrow window of related problems over and over again, yes, you absolutely want an expert siloed in those. The other type of learning environment is what I called a wicked environment, which is where you have incomplete information. Right. Or you're going to have to form an abstraction to try to think of it in a different way in order to figure out how to even approach the problem. And you're not going to be confident of your solution. Yeah. And so you're going to be willing to challenge your own solution and looking for reasons to challenge your own solution because you're not confident about it. That sort of the range comes in. And the people with a shallower but wider expertise can be incredibly effective. So it's a good book. One I read while I was on sabbatical is So Anyway, the autobiography of John Cleese, which I found.
When did that come out?
2014.
Okay.
And I found it in a used bookstore in Port Townsend, and I laughed out loud, like deep belly laughs, about a half dozen times in the first 10 pages. Nice. And that's not a thing that happens. Cleese has been at the formation of a lot of what I find funny. I look back at my own history. What was I listening to when I was a little kid, trying to figure out what made people laugh and comedy and the like. And I remember my parents letting me listen to George Carlin albums and Steve Martin albums. And then, what was available on PBS? It was Fawlty Towers. Yeah. And Cleese was always my favorite of the Pythons because, and I know I've mentioned this before, he never gave any indication that what he was doing was funny. Right. Basil Fawlty was terrified and furious and frustrated and impotent, but he was never amused by what was happening.
Right. Yeah. He never found the situation
He never found it funny. And this book is not what you'd think it is. It's I think it's 17 chapters long, and only in the last chapter does he actually talk about Python. It was everything on the way to Python. There. From going to public school in the UK to up to Cambridge he was actually on Broadway for a time here in the US when he and Connie Booth were dating.
Pre-Python?
Pre-Python, yeah. At which I've been rewatching it. Monty Python's Flying Circus came out 50 years ago. Premiered in 1969.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Anyway, fantastic autobiography and hilarious. And very informative too. So, what are you watching right now?
Watching. I feel like Hannah and I just finished watching something, and I can't remember what it was. Was it The Blacklist? We were watching that just kind of for something to do. It was all right, and I enjoy James Spader. He's usually funny, but I don't think I was going to recommend it to everybody. Like everyone else in the world, I am watching The Mandalorian.
Same.
And it's fantastic, and I am so glad I started watching it early, because... Spoiler, there's a character in it that everyone loves that is now an internet sensation. If you've somehow missed it, I'm not going to spoil it for you.
I don't see how you could have missed it.
I don't know how, but if you somehow missed it, I would have been so upset if I had waited until this was all out to watch it. Because that reveal was awesome. And if I'd had that spoiled for me, I think I would have had less investment in the series to begin with.
I've been enjoying it. as well. I like how when it's set, and I like that it's owning the prequel trilogy as well. Like the few crumbs of that we've seen. I like that it's exploring sideways, like the middle ground between good and evil that we haven't seen before. And I like that it's got a very like comic book anthological feel to it, in not just the length of the episodes, but how divergent they are.
Yeah, it's not like a lot of current series where the story is progressed very prominently every episode.
Yeah.
Like you're getting more of this story, but it's not, here is our central storyline and that's what we're doing.
And I look, of the criticisms I've heard of it, no, it's not especially deep.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be.
No.
It's
fun.
Great as what it is. It is fun. Yeah. It is clearly for children as well. Like all Star Wars is, right? And I'm digging it.
Yeah.
I love the artwork at the end of each episode that look like the 1960s and 70s sci-fi covers.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that's fantastic. Yeah. No, there's very little about that series that I don't have something good to say. Yeah. It's interesting to have a main character whose face you've never seen. Like you can't.
Oh, we had that in the original trilogy.
I mean, yeah,
Until
you had that
the
in
very
Vader.
end. Yeah.
But Vader was a villain.
True.
Like this is they're not trying to get you to empathize with Vader. Like this is the main character. You are supposed to be on that character's side, but you can never see what they're thinking.
And we also not only do we never see his face, we don't even know his name.
Right. He's just the Mendo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah.
Or the smaller character's name.
Oh yes. Yes, that one.
Which is, it's very Lone Wolf and Cub in a way.
Kind of, yeah.
So that's fun. What else have you been watching? Have you seen the new episode?
Oh yes, actually last night.
I have not seen it, so please.
No. I will have no spoilers, but no, I because I refuse to have anyone accidentally spoil it for me. I caught the 12:45 a.m. showing.
Oh my god.
Of Rise of Skywalker. Yeah, I was up till like 4. I was kind of tired this morning. But I mean, I enjoyed it. It is a J.J. Abrams movie.
Damn it.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot that's really on point. There is. There are a few things that I'm like, that really went well. And there are a few other places where I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. Let me have some time to reflect. And then there were other places where I was like, oh, come on. So I mean, overall, I think I liked it. I need a little more time to reflect, and I'm going to see it a second time.
Still digesting?
Yeah. I mean, and there's definitely, like, as a Star Wars nerd, like stuff where I'm like, well, canonically, that shouldn't be, that doesn't jive with this other thing, or they addressed this, but they didn't really address it well. Like, it doesn't really sound like, so, like, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But there's one really important element and relationship in that movie that he really did very well.
Oh, good.
So,
did it satisfy?
A lot of it did, yeah. I mean, if this were not a Star Wars movie, I would have said I liked it. I'm still willing to say I liked it, but I'd be more forgiving if it weren't a Star Wars movie. How's that?
That's fair. I'm really looking forward to seeing it for, not just obviously it's concluding the third trilogy and concluding the 9-episode arc, but think of it as like the first trilogy, the original trilogy I saw as a child. The prequel trilogy I saw
as a young adult.
Mostly as a young adult, so going from childhood into adulthood.
Transition.
Now in my 40s, like I'm seeing the sequel trilogy. Is that what we call it?
Yeah.
As a father.
I think, yeah.
So it's been 3 different stages of life.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily its own insight. It's just, I'm in a very different place each time I see these.
Yeah.
Anything
How about
else?
you?
Well, also Mandalorian.
Heck yeah.
Because, we have children, therefore we have Disney Plus, therefore we have the Mandalorian. And a lot of times it's difficult sometimes for Camille and me to find shows that we both want to watch, or that we're at the same stages of. Like I've been at season 3 of Stranger Things for months. She's still working her way through the first couple of seasons. And
Oh.
I'm looking. That's
There was no
next
way
on
I
my
wasn't.
list.
Yeah, starting through that one, I had to binge that one.
So good.
Yeah. I lost so much sleep.
Yeah. So it's nice to have one that we both agree
Yeah.
on and can watch, and because it's anthological, it's easily picked up and easily put down.
Well, and I'm sure that it probably helps that it comes out once a week, so it's easier to sync up.
And it's also, I don't if Doodle gets up in the middle of the night and catches us watching a show, he's not going to see anything in the Mandalorian
Right.
that's going
Yeah.
to send him to a therapist.
Right.
Probably. I don't know. Maybe the blurgs.
Yeah.
So we watched that. We watched a 6-part season of a British television show that was available through HBO called Years and Years, which I'd heard some very difficult to watch, but excellent in its way. And it's the story of a family set in the near future in the UK.
Okay.
It begins with the birth of a child in 1999. So there's 4 siblings, each have their own families.
Okay.
About that. And then it fast forwards 5 years to 2024, continuing on current trends. And it doesn't pull its punches, and it's not optimistic. In this UK in 2024, I believe Brexit happens.
Yep.
Trump is reelected. Pence is elected after him.
Oh, God.
There are a growing refugee crisis, and you see in how this family reacts. They're from Manchester. The family's grandmother has the home that serves as the basis for all of them coming together.
Okay.
And it's how it's a long story of seeing a whole bunch of stuff happen on a macro scale come into a micro scale and affect the family directly. Like, not all of them make it, and not all of them stay together. And like I know that it's really worth watching. It's difficult, it is critical, and it is necessary because they're tackling themes of immigration and war and technology and environmentalism. And as the series progresses, because each year is another year later, so they go all the way to 2029 projecting out.
Wow.
And you see not only the progression of things getting worse and worse, but never in a dystopian Terminator way. It's entirely believable. It's scarily believable. It's eerie in that regard. And it happens so sequentially and so gradually, one thing building on another, and each one stretched out by a year that you're like, well, yeah, that would happen.
Yeah.
Roe v. Wade is overturned in the United States. Yeah, that would happen.
Yeah.
Checkpoints throughout Britain to deal with the refugees crisis. Yeah, that would happen. A populist comes to power in Britain.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could happen. You see,
Could happen.
Well, yeah, and at the same time, you're seeing stuff that you don't even necessarily see, but that is hinted at. That's just accepted by the family. Again, there's a nuclear exchange of missiles. The Arctic is gone. There's no more ice.
Yeah.
Everyone is communicating via these family communications hub devices. So it's just, I'd call it dystopian realism in a way. I don't know that they will do another series based on how it ended, because it's complete in that sense.
Right.
Like, it's not like
Yeah.
it left on a cliffhanger. It was complete, but it was great. And then the other thing I watched, is the single best season of television I've ever seen, and that was Watchmen on HBO.
I am so excited to start that, and after you just made that statement, I'm even more excited.
It is utterly magnificent. And first off, it functions as the best after a long delay sequel to material that I've ever seen. Like, there's some of these that I've wanted to see. Like, there was the reboot of Blade Runner.
Yeah.
I thought matched the aesthetic and the tone of the original really well, though the story didn't entirely sync up.
Right.
This is a sequel to the comic, not the movie, with an entirely new brand of characters that then dips into the old characters and brings them out. In some of them have definitely they have a legacy that is reflected in the series.
So, is the ending the same ending as the comic book?
Yes.
Huh.
It goes from the... this is not a spoiler. It's been around for 30 years. But Ozymandias dropping the interdimensional squid on New York, killing 3 million people, and terrifying everyone into abandoning the arms race against
against each other.
To take up defenses against an imaginary interdimensional threat.
Right.
It's 34 years later, and those threats are still going on when we pick up. It is a story about black pain and the black experience. And it doesn't tokenize. I'm sorry, this is my perspective on it and from what I've read, because obviously there are huge gaps in my own knowledge of that experience.
Right.
But from what I've read and from what I saw and how what resonated with me, it doesn't shy away from it. It doesn't pull away from it. The characters are nuanced and deep and acting from completely believable situations, and it goes for the jugular. The white supremacists are the enemy, unequivocally. Okay. It goes after America's founding sin, the gaping wound, white supremacy. Even when you think about this is a movie. It feels like a movie. This is a show about Cape Crusaders,
right?
Science fiction-y, but it lands every punch. It is a masterclass in storytelling, in long-form storytelling, in tying things together, in character growth, in using speculative fiction to expose the problems in a society. Like it's what was wanted from Game of Thrones, but the Game of Thrones just could not deliver.
Yeah.
This delivers, and it does it in 9 episodes. I don't know if there's going to be another season. The cast has said they're on. The showrunner has says, if we can think up another idea for it, yes, absolutely.
Right.
And if it does not go on, I would be sad. I would be sad the same way that I'm sad that there was only one season of Faulty Towers, and that there were no more Star Wars movies in my youth past the original 3. Like, I'm sad because I want to know so much more about this world, but at the same time, the story you have given me is complete.
Right.
And I'm still thinking about it. Yeah. It never got stale, it never got boring, and the one dangling thread that it left was answered in a transmedia campaign that was of documents that was released after each episode on the HBO website.
Huh. That's interesting.
That was masterful, dude.
Well, I'm gonna have to pick.
Just brilliant.
That was already on my list, but I think it just moved up a little higher on my list based on your description.
Apologies, you will not be getting much sleep.
Okay. So wait until I have nothing to do the next day, or have a weekend where I don't have any plans.
And I would recommend rereading the comic first.
Okay.
So what are you playing?
What am I playing?
You kind of hinted at it earlier with the L5R podcast.
Yeah, L5R, Legend of the Five Rings. Usually I'm able to get in 2 days a week of a couple hours at one of the FLGSs. Thursdays I have a D&D group. I'm trying to start a 5th edition campaign, but actually right now in that one we're playing 3.5 because everyone in that group liked 3.5, so that's what we're playing. But at home I'm actually just finished Red Dead Redemption 2.
Oh, cool.
So I'm a little behind everybody else, but that's kind of how I am with video games most of the time, is I'm like, I could pay $60 for it. Or I could play the game after they've worked out the bugs and released the additional content for half the price or less. And that's usually how I approach most of my big banner games.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it was very satisfying. It was fun. It was gritty. It was definitely a Western. Like a lot of the details I thought were very interesting. Like one of the big bad guys is the Pinkerton Agency agents and stuff like that.
So actual historical.
Yeah, no, very much so. And it, kind of like the original, part of the theme is just that this kind of life is going away. Like this, Western, like what we think of as the Western experience. Cowboys with guns at their side and outlaws and bandits roaming the countryside, or at least in pockets, and that this is kind of the end of that. But it's still here right now.
That seems pretty sophisticated for a video game.
Yeah, I mean it is. I'd say it's really good storytelling, especially for a video game, and it doesn't. Yeah, I'd say it's pretty decent. And there's places where I was like, oh, I am shocked that you did that. But that was great. That was fantastic. Yeah, there were definitely parts, without spoiling it, in case, I don't know if you ever play it. I mean, just sometimes, like, you'll just be, like, in town drinking, and then some guy that you encountered, like, a chapter or two ago just walks up to your friend, or no, from a rooftop, just blasts your friend in the head, like, from out of nowhere. Like, so, like, I mean, just different stuff like that, and it's, like, one of the most likable characters, of course, like, I guess it's hard to, because, I mean, people die in video games and narratives, but it's hard to, I guess, describe how they kind of, they do a good job of investing you in the gang that he's with, like, and who they are, the things that happen to people, and sometimes they're just bad, sometimes they're funny, sometimes I was just impressed. I thought it was a pretty decent game.
That's great.
So
I may have, one of those things, sometimes I wonder what will I do if I reach the age of retirement.
Yeah.
And a lot of the thinking is I'm going to read all the books that keep adding to my shelves, and maybe play some of these great games that I never had the opportunity to. Though I have discovered recently I am not nearly twitchy enough to play some of the favorite games anymore.
Yeah.
Like we got a Nintendo Switch over the summer, and it's been fun watching Doodle take to that. He loves the Mario Kart battling.
There you go.
Particularly, but it's different than when we were doing it.
You mean he doesn't swear at all the other players?
Well, I mean, he can
over the top comical.
Well, he plays against the machine.
Oh,
and it's not an 8-person. It's not a 4-person. It's an 8. Yeah. It's a 12.
Oh, wow!
In some there, and they have different kinds of competitions. There's the balloon popping one. The one he likes is called the coin runner, which is there's a bunch of coins around the maze, and whoever has the most of them has the crown, and they will win the battle when the timer is done.
But you can get more coins and take the crown from
them.
Yes,
and if you hit someone, like, or you make them spin out, you blast them with a shell, they drop 3 coins. So you can come and grab their coins. So he's worked out which of the nimble characters he likes to play the most, and he's having fun with that.
That's fun.
And then one of the games I'd gotten, because I loved the series, was the Donkey Kong Country series. There was one that they had for the Switch called Tropical Freeze, and I just don't have the speed anymore or the reaction time as much. There's the doorbell. Let's see who that is. Well, it was a box of wine. A wine club shipment for the previous owners of this house.
Hey.
This is like a moral dilemma for my wife. All right, so I think we finished what are we playing? Let's get on to the questions now.
All right, we got some questions. From Red, is there any career or skill you would like to learn or try or have done?
I would like to learn to play the guitar. That was always something that I was curious about, acoustic guitar. I actually listen to a lot of acoustic guitar and folk music when I write. I have a couple of Pandora stations. There's the Waylon Jennies, not the Waylon Jennings, the Waylon Jennies.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
Who are a Canadian trio of who are magnificent. But I can't listen to folk music and write if there are lyrics to the songs. I find that too distracting. So what I listen to is a different radio station I put together called Don Ross Radio. Don Ross is a Canadian acoustic guitarist. I think he's the only person to have won the World Guitar Championship or something of the like twice. He's an absolute virtuoso. And that's something that I can listen to that's mood setting, but because there are no lyrics, it doesn't pull my attention away from the screen.
Right.
But I'd like to learn to play. In fact, I got a guitar. It was a birthday gift from Camille that I took on sabbatical, and I don't have much experience. I've only been playing for about 90 minutes. But
it's kind of cool.
It's, I'm trying to figure out how to get my big peasant hand around the fret and press the string, only press one string down at a time. It seems to be a skill that would have been better started 30 years ago, but better late than never, right?
Right on.
Yeah, how about yourself?
I mean, actually, guitar is one I've thought about. I would like to take up some sort of fencing, I think. When I was a kid, I actually, one year for Christmas, asked for fencing lessons. Like, that was what I wanted. It turns out There's no one in Idaho who teaches fencing. Who knew? I guess it's just not big there. If I could go back, though, and tell my younger self to get a skill that there's no way I could acquire now, especially with my knees in their current condition, I would tell myself to take ballet. Like, I absolutely would.
Yeah.
Just as an actor, like, the control and mastery of movement and ability to convey emotion with the physical instrument is just fascinating to me, and I recognize what a valuable thing that would be for me as an actor to be able to just do that without thinking about it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that if I could have any skill, like, go back and, like, get it, that would be it for sure. Let's see, what else do we have? From Moritz, I saw that you once shared a song by Hank Green on Facebook. Do you like his music in general?
I don't know who that is. Here's what I think happened. Doodle is to the age where he doesn't just want to use his, parental controlled login on the family computer. Yeah. He wants to be on mine because he wants to be able to watch his YouTube videos of marble run races. And he likes to catalog the way that I do too. He loves the Don Ross radio station. Okay. He listens to it as he sleeps, and he likes to write down the names of the songs in a spreadsheet and who the composer is and what the album is, and tell me this information. Yeah. It's exciting because he knows that I like it, so he likes it, and then it's a thing that we can share together. Yeah. And one time I caught him pressing this button over and over again on Pandora, which was share to Facebook, share to Facebook, share to Facebook. And I went onto my feed and I had spammed all these acoustic guitar pieces everywhere. And my assumption is Hank Green was somewhere in there. Because I don't know who that is.
That's funny.
Yes.
From Rival, is Scrunchling Town in one of the familiar worlds of the Hop Jockey universe?
I hope not. Scrunchling Town is one of the settings in the latest Choose Your Own Grizzly Doom, Hungover in Whimsyland.
Oh, okay.
Which, if you remember, one of the ideas that never made it out of DG development that I'm still playing with is Jeff in Wonderland. Imagine Jeremy Spray in a soiled hoodie with a black eye and no pants. Hungover in Wonderland.
That's fun.
Yes, it is. So, dear God, I hope that does not become a permanent place in the Hop Jockey universe, but we'll see. So far, the players survived the first installment. They're making a second choice right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a thing I do once a month, yeah.
Let's see, also from Moritz, why are the Proclaimers the best band in the world? What album is a good start to get into the Proclaimers? I think the obvious answer here is they are obviously the most fit band.
That's true.
Yeah.
They, so the Proclaimers, I mean, they're not the best band in the world. I was heavy into them in the last decade or so, especially when we were in California. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of stuff in their music that just directly appealed to me. One of them was, the story is fascinating. They're twin brothers, identical twin brothers, Craig and Charlie Reed. Mm-hmm. They sing the absolute shit out of every song that they sing, right? They don't have beautiful voices, but they destroy their songs when they go through them. We saw them in concert in the El Rey at one point when we were in LA. It was great. And their music is all about, their music has transitioned as they've gotten older to writing about, the struggles of marriage, but it's all Scottish Heartland rock. And a lot of questions about questioning their role in the UK, why Scotland hands away so much of its sovereignty, critiques of immigration policy or Scotsmen not accepting immigrants and such. It's there's a lot of depth to it, and then there's a lot of songs about drinking and being drunk and being hungover. If you were to get started on, and one thing I've always loved about their music is its pace, and there's an urgency to it. Is a bittersweet urgency to the beat of many of their songs. If you wanted to get into the Proclaimers, the albums I would recommend, the one that you may know best is Sunshine on Leith. That's Leith, Leith. That is the album on which 500 Miles was written.
Right.
They had an album, I think it was around, I forget, 2005 or so, called Restless Soul. It was also quite good. My favorite album of theirs is called Persevere. And it's got my favorite song on it of theirs, which is called There's a Touch. And it's the first song on the album. You should look it up. There's a Touch by the Proclaimers. The music video involves a piano being dropped on them. So it's,
okay. Here you go. Let's see. Is there a single...
who's
from
this
Rob. From Rob. Is there a single movie quote that sticks in your mind?
Do you have one?
You know, I don't have one. Like, I'll constantly be thinking of movie quotes in a context for wherever I am or whatever I'm doing. But if someone just pointed to me and said, give me a movie quote, I mean, I'd probably just pull out, my name is Inigo Montoya. I mean, everyone's got that one ready to go. But I don't think there's one that I go, you know what? Here's a movie quote that's always been on my mind at any given time.
I do have one. It's from a movie from 1941 called Sullivan's Travels by Preston Sturges, who was Hollywood's first writer-director. Like, this is in the time when you were one thing. You were siloed in that thing, and the studio owned you. And he made a name for himself writing these wonderful, reflective comedies in like the first half of the 1940s. He had something like 7 hits, and then he just kind of I don't know that he lost the touch or society moved on, but he didn't have a great hit after that. From like 1941 to 1944, so in the heart of the war, he released just a series of wonderful films. There was that he wrote and or directed. There was The Great McGinty, The Lady Eve, and this one, Sullivan's Travels. The story is Sullivan is a film director who's known for his comedies, and it's set during the Great Depression. He wants to break out of comedies and make an actual drama. He wants to do The Great Train Robbery. And the execs are like, but Sully, you're a comedian.
Yeah.
You don't know anything about the actual suffering of the everyday man because you're kind of sheltered and all this. And he takes offense at that and decides, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to experience the life of the ordinary man. And he goes out there and just gets repeatedly humbled and humiliated, and he winds up on the wrong side of the law. And it sounds hokey, but it is so good. There's even racial commentary on it from the 1940s in it, right? And at the end of the movie, he comes back, and you think the typical Hollywood ending is now he can make the movie that he wants to. He comes back, having experienced what it was like to be during the Depression, and they say, "So you're ready to make the movie?" He says, "No, I don't want to. I'm going to pass." And I'm like, "Why? Why, Sully? You went through this odyssey to learn about it. Why go back to comedies when this is what you've been after?" And this stuck with me. He says, it's the last line in the movie.
Yeah.
Sully says to them, "There's a lot to be said for making people laugh. Do you know that's all some people have? It isn't much, but it's better than nothing in this cockeyed caravan." And this is a movie that I never would have watched if not for having gone to film school. Because in the year, between the time that I was accepted and the first classes beginning in September, it was about I think I was accepted in April, classes beginning in September. So in that 5-month period, you had to, move to LA, get acclimated, get ready for classes. And for prep, they sent you two lists, a book list and a movie list. Read these 7 books, watch these 40 movies. And Sullivan's Travels was on the list. And I just remember watching it, thinking, oh, great, a black and white movie from the 40s, right? And just sitting there at the end with my mouth agape, thinking, this is one of the finest pieces of film I've ever seen. So that's the quote that comes to me. There's a lot to be said for making people laugh. That and the other one. The character of Evil from Time Bandits says to one of his minions, "You are so mercifully free from the ravages of intelligence." Is my other favorite movie
That
quote.
is a good one.
And one that's more applicable in today's society.
Yes, I think so. I think there's one more from Moritz. What product or service does Gary's startup sell?
Whatever is narratively convenient.
That's right. That reminds me of the Joss Whedon quote regarding Serenity. It's like, how fast does Serenity travel? And his answer was, at the speed of plot.
That's right.
Yeah.
Here, I think I left the final page in the printer, so holding music, please. He's doing the hand motions. I know you can't see that, but that was pretty funny.
All right. From every door repairman. Lightning round. Cardio or weights?
Cardio.
Cardio. Toast or eggs?
Eggs.
Toast. Jogging or hiking?
Hiking.
Hiking. Rich friend or loyal friend?
Loyal friend.
Loyal friend. Toilet paper, over or under?
Over.
Over. What's the best age?
I don't know. Middle.
The mortal age.
Okay.
In Thera.
Oh, thank you.
Bath or shower?
Bath.
Shower. When sleeping, fan or no fan?
No fan. But I do like some white noise.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna go with fan if it's hot.
Yes.
Otherwise, no. Ninjas or pirates?
Pirates.
Ninjas. Train or plane?
Train.
I think I'm gonna go with you on that one. Favorite fast food?
Taco Bell.
Jack in the Box. Name your parents used to call you. Nickname your parents used to call you.
Matty Matt.
Monkey Man. I've never admitted that to anyone but Hannah, and now everyone else gets in on that too. Favorite childhood TV show?
Gummy Bears.
He-Man. What's for dinner tonight?
I actually don't know. We've eaten through most of our leftovers.
There you go. Leftovers is what I have.
Oh, excellent.
Big dogs or small dogs?
Small dogs.
Medium dogs. Option C. Honesty or others' feelings?
These are not mutually exclusive.
I agree. If I had to, if there was just a black and white honesty.
There's a Buddhist expression of, before you speak. One, is it kind? No, is it true? Is it kind? And is it necessary?
Right.
Or it's just in some combination.
Yeah.
Of those. I think is it necessary? Is it kind? Is it true?
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, you don't need to say it.
Yeah. Would you rather be able to speak every language in the world or be able to talk to animals?
Every language in the world.
Ditto.
I think the animals would just be screaming about how horribly we've been treating them.
It reminds me of the Far Side comic, where it says, finally Professor so-and-so invents the device that lets him translate what dogs were saying. And he puts on the device and all the dogs are just like, hey, 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 hey. Like, that's it.
Speaking of, did you see that the Far Side has a new website with new content?
No way!
Yes, Gary Larson is back.
Oh my God.
I know what you're doing this evening.
So into that, yeah. With
your leftovers.
My evening's taken. Exactly. Cranberry sauce. From a can or homemade?
Homemade. Camille does this incredible cranberry sauce that is meant to be served warm. And it includes, obviously, the cranberries.
Right.
But it's also got fresh ginger, orange juice, and apricot jam. And it is spicy, and it's got a smoky sweetness to it, and it is so good with turkey.
Having never had that cranberry sauce, I'm going within a can.
Okay.
And then, that's our lightning round. From Linkmaster General, what's a favorite memory of November?
November. When I was in film school, when we were in Los Angeles, there was one Thanksgiving we couldn't get back to the Northwest. And turned out there were a whole bunch of us, of these Los Angeles exiles, or expats from elsewhere.
Yeah, I was one of them, yeah.
You and Paige were there, and we had some neighbors from downstairs. And we wound up having a potluck Thanksgiving for exiles up on the roof of our 1920s converted hotel apartment building with its views of the skyline. And the thing about the LA skyline is there is no LA skyline. There's about 6 different pockets of skyscrapers, depending on where you are in the city there. But some of those long sunsets were just magnificent. And I remember we all caravanned from our little 3rd floor apartment up to the 5th, up to the roof there, and had a grand old time. That was a favorite memory of November.
Oh. Actually, I just made a really good one recently. Just a lot of October and the first part of November. I'd just been working way more than usual even. Like, I was putting in 55-hour weeks, and that's not counting the commute.
My God.
Like, yeah, no, it was, a lot of stuff was happening. And so we just hadn't seen each other. We hadn't been connecting. Like, there's that point where sometimes when, you're both tired and there's some sniping at each other and, So we were just like, look, I'm done with the busy stuff. I'm going to take a day off and we're just going to get away for the weekend. And so we did. We just rented a cabin in Leavenworth and we drove up there and it was nice and calm. I mean, except for the fact that it was night and raining. But, I mean, everything else was calm. Like, we were together, we were talking, we were listening to music. We had a nice, really relaxing, a couple days up there. Had a nice drive back. It was just nice to be there and reconnect. And it was great.
It is nice to get away from the noise of everyday life.
Yes.
And I don't just mean noises and sound, but I mean having to stare at a screen all day, or just the ambient light pollution, or just the constant sensory input of modern society.
And, I didn't read the news for like a day and a half, and, like you can't shut the world out indefinitely, but sometimes it's nice to do it for a short amount of time, just to
unplug for
kind of hit the reset button.
Yeah. I missed
Get ready to hit it again.
I got to do that in December when I was staying at the Should Be Haunted Castle.
Yeah. Sometimes it's really good to just have that getaway.
Yes.
So.
I'll see you there next month.
All right.
All right.
I think that's the end of our list.
That is. Well, thank you for joining us. We forgot to introduce the show.
We do that sometimes. Oh, no, wait. We do that every time.
Most times. So I guess we'll finish it up there. Hi, welcome to Coddiwomple. I'm Matt Vancil.
And I'm Nathan Rice. And thank you for joining us on Coddiwomple. We'll see you next time.